Welcome back to Sunrise right here on CVMTV. It's our pleasure to serve you each and every morning. Now, our next guest is attorney at law and partner at Duncox, Paulette Neal. She joins us this morning to discuss some of the laws surrounding the hospitality industry. The question today is, while on vacation, my family and I were staying at a resort. I got food poisoning and had to be hospitalized for a week. Should the hotel cover my medical expenses? Court is in session. Good morning, Ms. Neal. How are you?
How are you?
Morning. I'm fine, thanks.
Lovely. Well, this happens a lot, more than people would ever imagine. What is the hotel's responsibility to their guests?
Okay. So, firstly, it is tried law that an occupier of a premises, in this particular case, a resort, has a duty of care to all its lawful visitors.
Yes.
Right? So the first thing that has to be established is the duty of care, and that is well settled in law. In this particular scenario, the next thing to establish is whether or not there was a breach of the duty of care. And thirdly, it has to be established that the breach of duty of care caused the injury sustained by the guest. Yes.
So there are certain hurdles that you have to cross.
Yes.
So generally speaking, this falls under the area of tort?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And the specific tort is negligence.
Negligence.
So the issue is whether the hotel is negligent in the circumstances.
So in this instance of the food poisoning, so let us say we have ticked off all of those prongs that you just listed. What is the next step?
Right. So if it is that we already established that there's a duty of care.
Yes.
If there's a breach of duty of care and that the breach caused the injury, then of course the hotel is liable to compensate the guest, right? And the guest would recover for the medical expenses and other things. So,
what do you say duty of care, counsel? Let's just break it down. And what does that mean? Like, I pay my money, I'm going to hotel, me have a duty of care.
Right. So it is a duty to ensure the safety of its guests. And this particular scenario, the duty is a bit more specific to ensure that the food that is being served is fit for consumption.
Very well.
All right. So I'm trying to process it in terms of this person making a successful case and call them attorney, and the attorney might say, look here, you're not very far with this, or me see live. So I'm thinking, first of all, I have established, but for me eating this, I would have been in good physical health. So I have to establish that it is this. I don't know. I guess there would be procedures for establishing that.
Right.
But like when you go into the restaurant and them say, "Hi, welcome, name," and you say, "Hey, Wilkinson," and then you say room number, and then they say, "Do you have any allergies?" And I said, "No." And then they say, okay, come in, let's, and then I eat something that I'm allergic, I get food poisoning or something, and I get sick. And like, if the hotel going and say 500 people at that same fish.
And nobody got sick.
So like, how was I negligent in terms of you?
Right.
How do you overcome that hurdle to make a successful case?
Okay, so there's a Latin maxim which translates in English to mean he who asserts must prove.
That's right.
Right? So in this particular case, the claimant, that's the injured guest, has the burden of proving that the food that was consumed at the hotel caused the injuries, right? And in this case, it's food poisoning. So case law has dictated that both medical evidence and facts will be necessary to prove the causal link, right? So when I talk about facts, right, these are the questions that will be taken into consideration. What exactly was consumed by the guest at the hotel? Was that the only meal for the day, right? Was that the last meal prior to the symptoms occurring, right? Did anybody else consume the food, right? Did anybody else suffer any adverse reaction to the food as well? So these are factual circumstances that has to be taken into consideration. Another fact that could be considered is did the hotel suffer a power outage during that time period?
For how long was the food on the line?
For how long did they have a generator working? Those are facts that are necessary in the circumstances.
Yes.
Now, apart from the facts, the medical evidence is also important, right? So, presumably, the injured party would have visited the doctor, right? Upon visiting the doctor perhaps would have run some tests,
Right.
could have done some blood tests or testing of samples of the stool. So if, for example, having those tests done reveals that there was some sort of bacteria
Yes.
found in the blood or in the stool sample, and that bacteria could have possibly been found in the food that was consumed
Yes.
at
There's
the
a link.
hotel, then that could help to establish the causal link between the food consumed and the diagnosis of food poisoning.
It sounds like it's not easy. It's not as easy to establish as you might think.
Yes. But it's not impossible.
No, it's not
Because I think
impossible.
some people, when they, they are injured in this way, they just think that they are totally, out of pocket and they don't have any way to recover, or they just take it and go home and treat with it. But you're also saying, though, that there is a possibility that they may have a vital case.
Yes.
Okay, or a viable case, rather.
Yes.
Very well.
Once you establish or you're able to prove the various limbs that we discussed.
Well, let me just ask you, though, what advice would you provide someone who suspects that they've suffered food poisoning? What steps should they take and what should they do?
Okay, so So firstly, I'd recommend that you seek immediate medical attention.
Yes.
At a resort, the hotel may not have a doctor on scene, but they likely would have a nurse.
Yes.
So your first point of contact would be the hotel's nurse. So depending on the seriousness of the situation, the nurse might refer you to the closest hospital. So seek medical attention. That's the first advice I would give you, because the medical evidence is necessary to prove that it is whatever you consumed at the hotel that caused the injury. The next advice I would give is to make a report to the management of the hotel,
Yes, paper
because
trail.
that helps to corroborate your story, right? Because if 5 years down the line you decide to make a claim, they will check. Did you make a report at the time of the incident? So it is important to report the injury that you sustained, as shortly after as possible. And I would say seek legal advice.
And as you said, talked about statute barred. How long do you have to claim on an injury of this nature?
6 years from the date of the incident.
Very well. And
6
after
years.
that, you're statute barred.
Right.
And
But it's important to seek the medical attention immediately. Don't wait until time has elapsed.
Yes.
Right.
Very
Preserve
well.
your evidence.
5 years later, somebody passed one time from the, I think it was that, right? But we thank you so very much. And so I like these types of conversations because I want my Jamaicans to know and people to know that they have a legal right, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, things happen to us, and because we're not litigious in nature, it's something up to you, just go home, then you say, just try to wrap it up or deal with them. Can't bother another quotas or whatever.
First of all, for the first 3 days, I guess,
Yeah, I guess.
I guess take you up.
Yeah. Just drink a go busy. Drink a go busy. So I like the fact that, we can have these discussions.
Yeah.
So in the event that person's experienced this, they would have at least remembered, somebody say something like this one land out of Jamaica. Never call a lawyer.
True.
Want to call a lawyer.
True.
Thank you so very
Absolutely.
much for
You're
sharing
welcome.
this
All
morning.
right.
Right.
Pleasure.
Well, when your partner at Duncox, you're a play lawyer.
That's right.
Paulette
That is
Neal
it.
is an attorney at law and a partner at Duncox. Coming up next is Copa. Copa Weekend Roundup is on the other side of the break. Stick and stay.
Well done.